What kind of job lets you start the day sorting data like this and end it by frying your boss with a cattle stunner? Look, we've all had bad jobs before, but Severance really said hold my beer and created the most unhinged workplace in television history. We've got 2 seasons of madness coming right up. Let's dive right in. Episode 1 kicks off with a woman waking up on a conference room table with 0 memories. Not her name, not her address, nothing. A creepy voice asks her bizarre questions through an intercom.
What is Mr. Egan's favorite breakfast?
And when she can't answer basic stuff, the voice is somehow satisfied?
That's a perfect score.
But that's not even the weirdest part yet. Then we meet Mark Scout, our main guy. He's having a full emotional breakdown in his car before heading into work at Lumon Industries. Dude looks like he's about to clock in for a regular 9-to-5 job, grab some coffee, answer emails, normal office stuff. But the second Mark steps into the building, things get weird. His face goes blank, his memories vanish, and his entire personality just switches off. What just happened? Well, buckle up because this is where things get crazy. Mark has a chip implanted in his brain that activates the moment he enters the office. This chip separates his brain into 2 people. There's Mark Scout, his outie, who lives in the outside world and remembers his life and family. Then there's Mark S., his innie, who works in Lumon Industries and has 0 memory of anything outside Lumon's walls. To his innie, life starts the moment he walks into the office and ends when he walks out. And to his outie, those 8 hours at work just disappear. He comes home with no idea what he did all day. Welcome to Severance, folks, the ultimate work-life balance. At the office, Mark works in macro data refinement with his coworkers Dylan, a nerd who keeps his beard, and Irving.
Hi kids, what's for dinner?
Their job is to sort out mysterious numbers on a computer by deciding which ones feel scary. Nobody knows what the data means, but hey, at least the benefits of sorting them are… wait, we don't know that either. Anyways, once Mark settles in, his boss, Ms. Cobell, and a creepy smiling supervisor, Mr. Milchick, drop some news.
Petey is no longer with this company.
Petey, Mark's best friend at work, just quit without warning. They promote Mark to department chief, and his first job is training the new hire. Then we see Helly R. She's the confused woman from the conference room who woke up with 0 memories. She's joining the team as a new hire because Petey left. However, she's not happy about being trapped down here, so she tries quitting 3 times. But every door she takes just leads them back to the same hallway. Then Ms. Cobell, the boss, shows Helly a video.
The procedure colloquially known as severance.
After work, Mark's pregnant sister, Devin, drags him to a dinner party, and we finally get to know why he signed up for Severance in the first place. Turns out, Mark lost his wife, Gemma, 2 years ago, and he figured 8 work hours of forgetting the tragedy beats therapy. So he let them split his memory, and now he has an innie and an outie. He spends the night at his sister's place and spots a mysterious man lurking outside her house. The next day, that same creepy dude approaches Mark at a diner. It's Petey, his best friend at work. But Mark's outside self doesn't recognize him because, well, Severance. Petey reveals he disabled his chip and got his memories back. He warns Mark that Lumon's hiding something big and hands him an envelope with an address. When Mark gets home, he chats with his neighbor, Ms. Selvig, who seems sweet.
You're good people.
Except she's Ms. Cobell, Mark's boss at work in disguise. Someone should tell this company about boundaries. In episode 2, Mark's trying to teach the new hire Helly the number sorting job. And guys, looking out for scary numbers is as ridiculous as it sounds. When that doesn't interest Helly, they switch to holding a welcome party for her instead. During the party, Mark quietly asks Mr. Milchick, their creepy supervisor, about Petey's resignation. But he brushes him off. Remember, Mark's outside self met Petey yesterday and even got that envelope. But this version of Mark, his innie, has 0 memory of any of that because of Severance. While the welcome party's going on, Helly's scheming something. She secretly writes a note trying to warn her outside self to quit Lumon. Too bad. The elevator's got some creepy body scanner that detects ink on paper. Security comes to grab her, and Mark takes the blame to protect her. His punishment? The dreaded break room. Yup, Lumon's got a punishment room for grown adults. But we'll get to that nightmare in episode 4. Meanwhile, Irving, one of Mark's coworkers who also sorts scary numbers, falls asleep at his desk and has a creepy hallucination. Honestly, I can't blame him. The guy's been staring at random digits all day. Instead of punishing him, the boss sends him to the wellness center, where he clicks with Burt Goodman, a new guy from another department. After work that day, Mark reaches out to Petey, who tells him about a secret map of Lumon he hid in the office. Mark ignores that and instead offers his basement as a hiding place. But the environment is triggering for Petey. He suffers an intense hallucination in Mark's bathroom, which is a side effect of turning off his chip. During his hallucination, his memories of Lumon and the outside world completely blur together. Is Petey gonna survive this? Episode 3 finds Mark still hiding Petey in his basement, but yikes, Petey's getting worse by the hour. He's suffering from severe headaches and hallucinations, so bad he can't tell yesterday from today. When he's lucid enough to talk, Petey explains that anti-severance activists helped him turn off his chip through a risky process called reintegration. He begs Mark to consider it too, but Mark refuses, insisting that severance helped him cope with his wife's death. Speaking of coping mechanisms, Mark's sister Devin and her husband Rickon drop by that day to gift Mark a copy of Rickon's new self-help book. After they leave, Ms. Selvig, aka Mark's boss-turned-neighbor, steals the book and sneaks into Mark's house with a spare key just to make sure he has not been going against Lumon's rules. Petey, who's still hiding in Mark's basement, spots her inside and recognizes her as his former boss. Terrified, he bolts out the back door before she notices him. Back at Lumon, Helly submits a formal resignation request. Here's the thing though, innies can't just quit on their own. Any resignation has to be approved by their outie, the version of them that chose to get severed in the first place. So Helly's begging her outie to show her some mercy and let her go. Lol, she got denied. Again. So Helly decides enough is enough and locks herself in a bathroom. This time, she's being smart about it. She starts writing a coded message on her arm, hoping to outsmart Lumon's creepy body scanner. But Mark bursts in and stops her, warning that it won't work. Seeing how broken Helly is, Irving, the hallucinating coworker, suggests taking her on a field trip to Lumon's perpetuity wing. Forget the fancy name. That place is basically a creepy museum filled with old portraits of the company's founder, Keir Egan, and his whole family tree. Great plan, Irving. Nothing cheers people up like staring at dead bosses. On the tour, Helly comes up with her third escape plan. She smashes a window and tries to throw a plea note outside the office building. But yeah, the security drags her back. This time though, she ends up in the break room. Dun dun dun! While Helly's stuck in the break room, Mark discovers the hand-drawn map Petey told him he hid in the office. Score 1 for the good guys. But the celebration's short-lived. By the time Mark returns from work, paramedics are carrying Petey's body from the road. Damn, they got him. Episode 4 starts with Helly's experience in the break room. She's forced to recite.
Okay. I'm sorry.
She does that 1,331 times over 2 days. Nah, I didn't make that up. Milchek, the creepy supervisor, was counting. When she finally gets released, she's furious. She grabs a paper cutter blade and threatens to hurt herself unless they let her send one final message to her outside self. Since Lumon's handbook doesn't cover blade-wielding employees, the boss agrees. Helly records an emotional resignation video and gets escorted off the floor, thinking freedom is finally hers. But nope. Moments later, she's back at her desk. Her outie watched the video and responded with the most savage rejection ever.
Anything to my fingers. Know that I will keep you alive long enough to horribly regret that.
Back to Mark. Later that night, he learns that Petey died from an unknown ailment. Yeah, right. Lumon speak for a week, kill whoever goes against us. Mark attends the funeral and runs into Ms. Selvig there. Remember, he is his outer self now, who knows her merely as a neighbor, not as a boss. He surprises to see her there, but she quickly lies, claiming Petey was her longtime customer. Smooth cover. But obviously she didn't come for the funeral snacks. While everyone's mourning, Cobell sneaks over to Petey's body and secretly searches his body for proof of reintegration, eventually stealing his chip. Meanwhile, back at Lumon, the episode ends with Helly in complete despair. On her way out of work, she sneaks an extension cord into the elevator and uses it to hang herself in the shaft. Security's gonna have some explaining to do tomorrow. Moving on to episode 5. Mark discovers Helly trying to hang herself in the elevator, and he desperately holds her up until the security chief intervenes, after which he's ordered to leave the premises. This triggers his switch back to outie Mark. Once he's back in his outside form, he rushes to meet his sister Devon at a birthing retreat after learning she's already in labor. While they're talking, Devon and her husband Rickon start teasing Mark for not leaving a comment on Rickon's self-help book. That's when Mark realizes the book was stolen from his doorstep. First, Petey mysteriously dies. Now books are vanishing, and Mark's connecting the dots real quick. The next morning though, Devon gives birth to a healthy baby boy, and everything seems perfect for a moment. But back at Lumon, things are far from perfect. Irving, the hallucinating coworker, finds this disturbing painting showing employees from another department attacking them, the number sorting workers. He shows it to Milchick, the creepy supervisor, who claims it was just a prank. Yeah, right. Obviously, Milchick wanted Irving to see it to scare him away from bonding with the other department. The plan backfires though, because instead of being scared off, Irving marches over there and runs into Bert, the optics and design department's chief leader and the same guy he clicked with at the wellness center earlier. They're having a friendly chat when Irving discovers something that doesn't sit right. Optics and design actually has 7 members, not the small team Bert mentioned before. Lumon's just weird, because why the heck would Bert lie about headcount? Anyways, Irving feels betrayed, but before he can get answers, Dylan, the nerdy coworker who never trusted Bert anyway, creeps in and locks Bert in a room. That's when Bert finally comes clean. He admits his team had long distrusted the number sorting people because Lumon spread rumors to both departments to keep them divided. Irving smooths things over, and Bert invites him and Dylan to see his department properly. In Optics and Design's back room, they discover a similar painting, except this one shows the number sorting workers attacking Optics and Design's employees, proving that Lumon manipulated both sides with fear and lies. Bert introduces Irving and Dylan to his team as friends, and just like that, the divide starts crumbling. Of course, Lumon's watching everything. The boss, Cobell, sits in her office staring at the security cameras as all this unfolds on camera, and when the security chief warns her that workers are discovering forbidden areas, she insists that giving them a false sense of freedom helps keep them tame. Evil, but smart, honestly. In episode 6, Cobell, Mark's boss, discovers that Petey's chip deactivation was done by a former Lumon employee named Ragabi. So she grows even more suspicious of all her employees, especially Mark, whom she met at the burial. To keep a tighter leash on him, because apparently breaking into his room to spy wasn't enough, Cobell takes her undercover work to the next level. When Devon, Mark's sister, needs a lactation consultant for her baby, guess who walks in? Mrs. Selvig. Same old Lumon ghoul in disguise. This woman's dedication is unreal. So let's recap Cobell's disguise collection. Mark's neighbor? Check. His sister's lactation consultant? Check. At this rate, she'll probably show up at his dentist next week. But her suspicions aren't far-fetched, because inside Lumon, the employees are starting to rebel. Irving's crushing on Bert from Optics and Design, which is cute but not allowed in this place. Meanwhile, Mark's cooking up his own rebellion. He schemes with Bert's group and proposes that they join forces with the number sorting team to uncover Lumon's secrets together. Unfortunately, their underground alliances lasts only about 5 minutes, because Milchick, the creepy supervisor, bursts in, shuts down the unauthorized meeting, and escorts them back to their area. But in the chaos, Dylan, the nerd, quietly steals a keycard without anyone noticing. Nice work, Dylan, but sorry, our dear Mr. Milchick knows where you live. That night, Milchick wakes up Dylan's innie while he's at home and takes back the stolen card. Dylan is shocked to be in his innie outside of Lumon's walls, but he's even more shocked to find out that his outie has a young son, a kid he'll never get to know or remember. After forcing Dylan to give back the keycard, Milchick switches him back, leaving his innie completely shaken. Cobell's not done punishing the team though. To stop their rebellious behavior, she orders a locked door installed at the department's entrance to trap the number sorters even more. Mark, our main guy, is tired of all the restrictions, so after getting home, he turns on Petey's phone that was left in his possession and it rings. The caller is Ragabi, who asks him to meet her at a specific location. Mark drives to a university as directed and finally comes face to face with the woman who might have all the answers he's been desperately searching for. Episode 7 starts with Ragabi revealing she's the Lumon employee who implanted Mark's severance chip in the first place, and warns him that Petey, his friend, died because he ignored her instructions on chip removal. She offers to help him remove his, but their meeting gets cut short when Lumon's security chief tracks them down and tries to capture Ragabi. Well, Ragabi handles that problem permanently. She beats the security chief to death with a baseball bat and gets rid of the body. After that, she hands Mark his keycard, telling him his innie will know what to do with it. The next morning at work, Dylan, the nerd, spills everything to his team about being in his innie outside of Lumon's walls. Mark then uses the stolen keycard to unlock their office door, which Cobell had sealed from the outside. Then, he sneaks in with Helly to Lumon's security office, hoping they can trigger the switches to wake themselves up on the outside. Inside, they find surveillance monitors tracking every employee's movement. Everywhere in Lumon, Irving, the hallucinating coworker, sees a video of Bert's outside self thanking his innie, and he realizes that Bert from Optics and Design is retiring. They barely got past handholding, and now it's over? Quite sad. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Devin, Mark's sister, is becoming best friends with her lactation consultant. Using their friendship, Mrs. Selvig, aka Ms. Cobell, starts fishing for information. She casually asks whether Mark's ever mentioned seeing his late wife Gemma after her death. Weird question to ask, right? Well, Cobell knows something big. I could tell you what it is, but nah, let's watch Mark figure it out first. Episode 8 starts with a party, where Cobell congratulates the number sorting team on meeting their monthly quota and schedules a wellness session for their team lead, Mark. Nope, she did not suddenly become a saint. We're getting somewhere. During that session, Ms. Casey, the wellness coach, confides in Mark that she's retiring. And Mark, being the nice person he is, asks if he can talk to someone on the outside for her. Meanwhile, Cobell's watching the entire session from another room, and she looks genuinely disappointed. Why? Because Mark and Ms. Casey are sitting right there together, face to face, and they don't recognize each other. Now, why would Cobell expect them to recognize each other? Guys, Ms. Casey is Mark's dead wife, Gemma. The wife Mark thinks died in a car crash, she's been alive and trapped at Lumon this whole time, working as the wellness counselor. Now, I'm set for season 2 because they definitely have to explain how that happened. While Cobell is still watching the session, things go sideways for her. She gets confronted by higher-ups for withholding Helly's suicide attempt, and for trying to get close to Mark's outie as Mrs. Selvig. Get this, folks. Cobell's been living a double life, playing neighbor, and nobody at Lumon asked her to. Wow. Anyways, she gets fired on the spot and is escorted out of the building by Milchek. With Milchek gone, the number sorting team seizes their chance to execute their plan, having Dylan, the nerd, awaken their innies outside the office. Before Mark and Helly step out of the building, Helly kisses him, fearing they might not reunite if something goes wrong. Finally, a whiff of romance. Once they're clear, Dylan locks himself in the security room and awakens their innies in the outside world. Time to see what happens when work crashes into your personal life. The last episode of Season 1 opens with Dylan locked in Lumon's security office, trying to hold on tight to the switch. His arms are shaking, but he's holding on. Then, we cut to the three innies. Innie Mark suddenly wakes up at a party with his sister, completely disoriented. He desperately tries to tell everyone that Ms. Casey is actually his wife Gemma and that she's alive at Lumon. But people think he's having some kind of breakdown. At the same time, Innie Helly wakes up at a fancy Lumon gala surrounded by cameras, donors, and politicians. She quickly realizes she's in her outie's body and discovers the devastating truth. She's Helena Egan, the Egan heir and the public face of Severance. Well, that explains those savage rejection videos. See, the whole point of this gala is for the Egans to show Helena as living proof that the procedure is safe, since their own daughter is part of it. But now, Helena knows the truth. The procedure is not safe, so she fights her way to the stage, abandons the prepared speech, and tells the entire crowd that
I'm an innie,
And everything they told you about Severance is a lie. We're not happy. We're miserable.
Meanwhile, Innie Irving wakes up in a basic apartment. He finds a dog, stacks of paintings, and the same disturbing image repeated everywhere. A dark corridor ending at a door marked by a red symbol. It matches his Innie's hallucinations perfectly. He also discovers a list of severed employees with addresses, proving his outie has been investigating Lumon for a long time. Armed with this information, Irving drives to Bert's house from Optics and Design, hoping to reunite with the man he fell in love with. But when he gets there, Bert's standing next to another man, his husband. Ouch. So let's recap all the chaos. Mark's wife is alive and severed, Helly's a corporate heiress, and Irving just got his heart broken by a married man. This show is absolutely wild. Episode 1 of Season 2 starts with Mark's Innie walking into Lumon Industries, and he is freaking out. The wellness center has been shut down, and when he gets back to his department, his entire number sorting team has been replaced by strangers. Mr. Milchick, who's apparently running things now, introduces Mark to the new deputy manager, Miss Wong. And she's a kid. Does that even make sense? Anyways, Milchick brings Mark up to speed. He claims 5 months have passed since what he calls the macro data uprising, and that Cobell, Mark's former boss, got fired for her unhealthy obsession with Mark. Apparently, all that pretending to be his neighbor thing was because she wanted a throuple with both Mark's Innie and outie. Yeah, let's not even get into the crazy of that right now. Even crazier, Mark's team supposedly became famous advocates for ending Severance, and Lumon asks their outies if they wanted to quit. According to Milchick, Mark's outie chose to come back, but Helly, Irving, and Dylan's outies all refused, so their Innie got retired. Desperate to get his friends back, Mark slips a fake threatening note into a new coworker's pocket, hoping it'll cause enough drama and make Lumon bring back the old team. But Milchick catches him red-handed. Before security drags him away though, Mark manages to shout a plea to Lumon's mysterious board. And guess what? It works! The next time Mark comes to work, all 3 of them, Helly, Irving, and Dylan, are back at their desks. Aw, it's one big family again. However, they each have their secret reasons for returning. Mark is obsessed with finding the truth about his undead wife Gemma, whom his Innie knows as Ms. Casey. Helly, who's fully aware that her outie is Lumon heiress Helena Egan, hides the truth and decides to help Mark. Dylan, the nerd, stays because Milchick privately shows him blueprints for a family visitation suite where innies can meet their loved ones. For the first time ever, he might get to see his kids. Irving nearly quits out of heartbreak, but Dylan talks him into staying. By the end of the day, as Mark works on his computer, his screen briefly flashes Cold Harbor alongside a photo of Gemma. Uh-oh. Now that we've seen the innies' reaction, episode 2 takes us outside Lumon to see how the outies are dealing with the chaos. For Helena Egan, Helly's outie and Lumon heiress, she's facing major consequences for having a public meltdown at the gala. She films this formal apology letter, claiming she acted out because she mixed her drinks with medication for an arm rash. For Mark's outie, he's still reeling from discovering that his wife Gemma is actually alive inside Lumon. But that's not the only bombshell. He also realizes his kindly neighbor was an impostor this whole time. He tells his sister Devon everything. And at this point, Mark's done. He wants to quit Lumon and never look back. But Devon urges him to investigate further, hoping they can somehow save Gemma. Armed with his recent discovery, Mark confronts Cobell on a dark street, demanding answers. But instead of confessing anything, Cobell screams and speeds away in her car. Anyway, back to work. When they resume the next day, they discover Milchick's whole story about improved conditions was a lie. The truth is, Lumon just reset everything back to normal while keeping an even tighter lid on their secrets. Sheesh. Moving right along to episode 3, the number sorting team starts posting missing person flyers with Ms. Casey's picture around the severed floor in Lumon. Irving takes one poster to Optics and Design and reunites with Felicia, Bert's former coworker. Trying to deal with Bert's absence, he shows Felicia his hand-drawn map of dark hallways that his outie keeps painting, and Felicia recognizes it immediately as the route to Lumon's export halls. Only God knows what they're exporting. Then we switch over to Mark's outie, trying something desperate to communicate with his innie. He builds a device to burn the question, "Who is alive?" into his eyes, hoping the after image will carry over when he goes to work. Before he can try it, Ragabi, Lumon's rogue ex-employee, arrives and stops him. She explains that tricks like that won't work because apart from ink spotting powers, the elevator can also erase any after image. Mark has only one option. deactivate his severance chip, and combine his innie and outie back together. Ragabi also confirms what Mark desperately hoped: Gemma is alive inside Lumon. That's all Mark needs to hear. He immediately agrees to the procedure, even when Ragabi drops the scary part. Petey, her last patient, died from this exact process. Mark's still all in, he needs to save Gemma. They start the process in his basement, and Ragabi begins adjusting Mark's brainwaves to turn off the implant. In the final moments, we hear Petey's voice echo, "Who are you?" This should go smoothly, right? The 4th episode throws the innies into the weirdest situation yet. The number sorting team wakes up as their innie selves in the middle of a frozen lake. Wait, what? Then Milchick appears in a pre-recorded video explaining that they're on an approved outdoor retreat and team-building occurrence, which has the unfortunate acronym ORPO. Apparently, it's a 2-day outdoor excursion allowed by their outies. Their mission: find a hidden Lumon handbook written by founder Keir Egan by following clues from some unusual guides. The confused team has no choice but to walk through the snow. Soon, they encounter the guides Milchick mentioned, and they are creepy. Imagine seeing an exact copy of yourself just standing there in the snow, pointing the way. It's stuff of nightmares. Following these eerie figures, the number sorting team finds the handbook, and it tells them to find another location called Woe. At Woe's waterfall, they eventually find Milchick and Miss Wong, the child director, telling stories. During the story, Helly makes oddly carefree jokes that don't match her usual personality. Irving, who's been suspicious of her since the gala incident, notices something is very off. Later, Irving privately questions Helly about what she really saw during the microdata uprising, and about her cold, outie personality. Almost immediately, Helena, the outie, comes out for a minute. Irving's worst fears are confirmed. Something is seriously wrong with Helly. He decides to torture Helly to get the truth from her, and Helly, gasping for her life, cries out Milchick's first name, Seth. Uh-oh, that's the giveaway right there. Dylan is not holding the switch now, so no innie should know Milchick's first name. In the aftermath, a furious Milchick fires Irving on the spot, effectively ending his innie forever. As security drags him away, Irving manages to warn the others that Helly is the founder's daughter. Episode 5 starts with Dylan planning a funeral to mourn Irving's innie, who was fired. He's stopped by Ms. Wong, the child director, who warns that the funeral could humanize the innies, but he doesn't back down. Finally, the funeral is allowed, but it includes a watermelon carved to look like Irving's face. What even is this company? During the funeral, Dylan remembers that Irving's last words were "hang in there," which matches a poster in the break room. Later, he checks behind it and finds a hidden card with directions to a secret area called Exports. Smart thinking, Irving. Even while getting dragged away, he was dropping clues. Dylan puts the card back to avoid getting caught, planning to investigate later. Meanwhile, on the management side, Milchick gets roasted during her performance review. Mr. Drummond, this scary senior executive, tears into him for being too nice and for the retreat disaster. He orders Milchick to treat innies as what they really are. Are they robots then, Mr. Drummond? Mr. Drummond? At the same time, back at Mark's house, Ragabi, the former Lumon employee, drops a huge reveal. Lumon has ties to the local morgue, and the ashes Mark received as Gemma's remains were fake. Mark then has this intense vision of being back at Lumon, stepping out of the break room, and seeing Gemma chatting with him about his outie life. For the first time, he has his own concrete proof that his wife is alive inside Lumon. Moving right along to episode 6, Mark's chip deactivation starts affecting him. He's hit with strange visions at work. Then his nose starts bleeding. If you remember, Petey had the same issues right before he died. Mark realizes he might not have much time left, so he does what anyone facing death would do: confess his secrets. He admits to Helly that during the Orpo retreat, he slept with Helena, her outie, thinking she was Helly. Angry that her outie stole this moment from her, Helly impulsively starts hooking up with Mark in an empty office room. Jealous of your outie, Helly? Wow. He's not the only one having a romantic moment though. Irving's fired, so he might as well make the most of it. He goes to have dinner at Bert's home with Bert's husband, Fields. Over drinks, Fields accidentally reveals that Bert worked at Lumon for 20 years, even though Severance has only existed for 12. Please don't let Bert be bad, let him just be a harmless grandpa. While Irving's away, we get another spy master in the form of Mr. Drummond, the scary senior exec. He breaks into Irving's house and discovers all the notes Irving compiled about Lumon employees. Busted! Meanwhile, determined to find Gemma, Mark agrees to Ragabi's risky plan to speed up his chip deactivation. Ragabi reopens an incision in Mark's skull and injects fluid around his chip to flood his brain with memories. Mark immediately experiences vivid flashbacks of his recent intimate moments with Helly. Ragabi warns him to stay still, but when his sister Devin knocks, Mark stands up. Big mistake. He's instantly hit by a violent seizure and collapses. In episode 7, we're rewinding to see how Mark and Gemma's love story started. They first met as professors at Gans College during a Lumen-sponsored blood donation outreach. They fall in love, get married, and plan to start a family. Everything seems perfect until Gemma loses the baby. The couple tries IVF at a Lumen clinic, but after 3 failed rounds, they stop trying. The stress of infertility seriously strains their marriage, and Mark buries himself in work to avoid dealing with the pain. One night, he declines going out with Gemma and her friends, a decision he'll regret forever because later that evening, the police show up at his door with devastating news. Gemma died in a car accident. But now, we know she didn't die. Lumen secretly keeps her as a patient, and each day, she experiences horrible simulations like painful dental exams or bumpy plane rides. I really don't know what they need this data for, but nothing about Lumen makes sense anyways. Dr. Maurer, the scientist in charge of Gemma, watches over these twisted tests and reports to Mr. Drummond, who leads a control room team monitoring everything from below. One day, Dr. Maurer crosses the line. He lies that Mark remarried and has a daughter. Gemma snaps. She grabs a chair and makes a run for it. But the moment she gets to the area where the number sorting people are kept, her persona flips to Miss Casey, the wellness counselor version. Now, she has zero awareness of Mark or her escape attempt. Episode 8 shows us what Cobell has been up to. We see her arriving in her hometown of Salt's Neck, and wow, this place is sad. The town's filled with closed buildings and widespread drug addiction, the terrible result of Lumen using that place as a factory. She reunites with Hampton, an old friend who worked alongside her as a child laborer in the Lumen plant. Despite some hard feelings, Hampton agrees to help Cobell visit her distant aunt, Sissy. To avoid Lumen surveillance cameras scattered around town, Cobell hides in the bed of Hampton's truck. At Sissy's home, Cobell begins searching for the real reason she's here, proof that she's the true creator of the Severance procedure. However, as she searches the house, she discovers that Sissy has thrown away all of her childhood belongings. Completely overwhelmed, she falls asleep crying, but hours later, Hampton wakes her up. The two share some ether, the addictive drug that ruined this town, and have a brief but emotional kiss. Hampton urges Cobell to leave before Lumen's agents track her down, but Cobell refuses. She knows her Aunt Sissy wouldn't have thrown away everything. Soon enough, she spots an outdoor storage shed and starts searching. There, she finds her high school yearbook and a special Lumen trophy she won as a teenager. Hidden inside the trophy is the proof Cobell has been looking for. She's indeed the inventor of the Severance procedure and technology. Wow, no wonder she's so invested. Finally, she leaves the house, and that's when Devin, Mark's sister, calls in a panic. Mark collapsed after deactivating his chip, and Devin desperately needs Cobell's help. In episode 9, Helly sneaks into the break room to retrieve Irving's drawing of the route to the exports hall. Then, she memorizes the directions written on the back. Meanwhile, Mark has woken up, and he plans with his sister to meet Cobell in a hidden spot. They confess to Cobell that Mark has begun deactivating his chip and asks for help accessing the Demona birthing retreat, a Lumen-owned facility with a severed cabin that could wake Mark's innie even outside Lumen's walls. At first, Cobell is hesitant. Why would she risk helping them? But then she remembers. Lumen already fired her and tossed her aside after everything she gave them. She's got nothing to lose and everything to gain by going against the company that betrayed her. So Cobell makes a choice. She'll pretend she's still a Lumen boss, use her insider knowledge to get past security, and take Devin and Mark straight to the Demona birthing retreat herself. Revenge tastes sweet. Back at Lumen, Mark's absence is causing major problems. Dr. Maurer, the scientist in charge of Gemma, and Mr. Drummond are panicking because today is the day Cold Harbor is supposed to be finished. What exactly is Cold Harbor? Well, we'll get to that in the next episode. But for now, you should know that Dr. Maurer and Mr. Drummond don't like the fact that they don't have their eyes on Mark. They blame Milchick, but Milchick, for the first time in his life,
Eat, Mr. Drummond.
I'm so proud of him. At the same time, Irving returns home to find his crush Bert waiting for him. Bert confronts him about his investigative notes on Lumen employees and takes him for a drive. During the ride, Bert admits he once worked as a Lumen driver transporting persons of interest. He claims he never knew what happened to them afterward. Sure, Bert. At a train station, Bert buys Irving a ticket and tells him that he must never return to work for Lumon. Bert is trying to look out for his lover. Cute, isn't it? Irving admits he's never been loved and asks Bert to pursue a real relationship with him, but Bert refuses. Irving leaves town with his dog Radar. Heartbroken once again. Poor Irving can't catch a break. That night, Helly stays late at Lumon drilling the exports hall directions when her father, James, unexpectedly walks into the office. We still don't know what Lumon is exporting, and Helly's father walking in right now is definitely not helping matters. At the same time, Cobell drives Devin and Mark to the birthing retreat. The episode ends with Mark's innie finally awake on the outside, ready to get answers. Moving on to the last episode of Season 2. At the Demona birthing retreat, Mark's outie and Mark's innie figure out a clever way to communicate. They record messages on a camcorder and have Mark step in and out of the severed cabin to answer each one. Finally! Where was this idea since? Once he's in his innie form, Devin and Cobell explain their plan to rescue Gemma from Lumon's testing floor, and use evidence of her kidnapping to destroy the company once and for all. But Mark's innie isn't on board. He's scared that their plan would erase his existence. Then he realizes something even worse. If Lumon is destroyed, Helly's life will be destroyed. Mark's innie grows upset, torn between saving Gemma and protecting Helly. Devin begs the innie to trust them, reminding him that Gemma is still alive and needs him. That's when Cobell drops the most horrifying truth yet. Every single number he's been sorting, it's been building new versions of his wife's innie. Now, Lumon has moved from severing people to making clones of their innies. Cold Harbor is the last stage in this sorting process, and once it's complete, Lumon will kill Gemma and bury all evidence. Mark's innie is still torn though. He really wants a future with Helly. So he storms off to the number sorting department, and with Helly beside him, he completes the Cold Harbor file. Milchick throws a celebration featuring a statue of Kira Egan, the founder of Lumon. Meanwhile, Helly uses the celebration as her opening. She distracts Milchick and locks him in a bathroom, while Mark races toward the elevator leading to the testing floor. Dylan shows up and helps Helly hold Milchick back by pushing a vending machine in front of the bathroom floor. Teamwork at its finest. Down in the Cold Harbor room, Gemma is brought in. Her newest innie is ordered to take apart the crib Mark once built for their baby. Dr. Maurer, the wicked scientist, and James Egan, the CEO, watch closely. Satisfied that the task triggers no visible emotion in her, they're testing whether this version of Gemma remembers anything. She doesn't. Elsewhere, Lorne, a new lady from another department, brings a goat per Mr. Drummond's instructions. The goat is supposed to be buried alongside Gemma, so he hands Lorne a cattle stunner to do the job. This company is twisted. But Drummond gets distracted when he spots Mark trying to break into the exports hall. He attacks Mark and tries to strangle him. That's when Lorne turns on Drummond, using the cattle stunner to stop him instead of the goat. Mark forces the captured Drummond toward the elevator to the testing floor. During the transition back to his outie, Mark accidentally fires the cattle stunner and kills Drummond. Oops. Mark's outie reaches the Cold Harbor room and uses his tie, soaked in Drummond's blood, to pass the biometric scanner. He frees Gemma from the room. As she switches back to her outie, she reunites with Mark in tears. They escape upward together, switching again to their innies as they move through the building. Mark's innie guides Miss Casey, Gemma's innie, to the exit stairwell so she can become Gemma and leave Lumon forever. But he realizes he can't follow her out. If he resigns to build a life with Gemma, his innie ceases to exist. Instead, he turns back to Helly. As Gemma cries for Mark behind them, Mark and Helly run through the Lumon halls, holding hands, choosing each other over freedom. After 2 seasons of brain chips, corporate cults, and the worst employee handbook ever, we've finally caught up on Severance. Anyway, feel free to click on the video on screen to watch another one of my videos. Peace out.